right then. Well, welcome, Brent, to Aaron's opinion, of course, and thank you. I just have to say, thank you for replying to my tweet or my reply so quickly. You basically just came in here right off the cuff, ready to record, ready to connect with me as a fellow podcaster. So I just cannot thank you enough for that. That's so great. So, Brent, as I was saying, I guess the best way for me for me to phrase this would be that I'm on High Energy FM, and I asked High Energy FM. I said, "Are there other content creators and DJs that I need to talk to? Because I'm always ready for the next guest." And they said you should talk to Canadians with disabilities. So, Brent, you can dive in either way. First question that I would ask though is, who is Brent, and then what is or who is Canadians with Disabilities? So first, tell me a little bit about your background, and then how you came up to developing your show, and then we'll dig it in. We'll go along from there. So go right ahead.
For sure. Well, first of all, my name is Brent, and I'm a very personable person, and I'm a conversationalist. So I like to strike up conversations with people who I come across in life, and just more of a natural just occurrence with common interests. People who I've met, I've been known where I can just talk to anybody on the street, on a bus. And I'm just natural that way where I've actually brought people together, Aaron, for my show, which is called Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. And I launched the show back in January of 2022, early January, simply because I wanted to bring people together for a common purpose with lived experience. And so far, it has really taken off really, really well. And I thank you for reaching out from High Energy FM, and they are totally awesome. And for people who don't know who High Energy FM is, they're in Trinidad and Tobago, and they actually reached out to me, and they showed quite an interest on my show. And so now the show has really taken off so well that High Energy FM is actually broadcasting my podcasts Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then recently, you were in contact with me. And that goes to show that my audience has really broadened out, bringing fellow allies on board and talking about the so important issues in life that affect every single person in the world.
Sure, that's wonderful, Brent, and I agree with you. You're definitely a conversationalist. So as I mentioned, I am blind with glaucoma, and I also have a congenital heart defect. So, if you don't mind me asking, are you blind? And if not, that's fine. But then, what is your disability?
I actually was born visually impaired. I was born blind. I could see shadows at first. I had an operation when I was a little toddler, um, basically, and then I had to go through another operation again. I used to walk in the walls. I used to like see a door and thought that was the door, and then it was actually the wall, and so I'd be seeing double vision. I do
Indeed.
remember little bit. Yes. It was quite scary for me, actually, to be honest with you. I was quite frightened, and I would cry. I do remember that. A lot of children don't always remember little things, but I remember that. And my mom, at the time, she realized there was a serious problem. So she took me to a specialist, and they determined that my vision wasn't getting any better, but the specialist had determined that they were going to have to do an operation, and it would be a 50-50 chance that I would see, well, shadows, very limited vision, or it would actually stabilize, where I was able to actually see, um, not normal, like normal to me, but it would be improved from what I was at. And it was successful, Aaron, I must say. And I'm so glad. I major gratitude to the doctor who performed my operation. It left me with astigmatism, I have a congenital nystagmus from birth, a hereditary condition that there's different severities for the condition. Mine, I guess, out of 1 out of 10, meaning 10 meaning the worst. Mine is at about, I'd say about a 6, 7. So yeah, like I'm very fortunate that it's stabilized to a point where I can function um, fairly relatively good. I do have difficulty reading very small print, and with corrective lenses. Now, without them, yeah, I can't really do that too well. I can see the words, I just can't make out what they are, and where some people would be able to read them.
Sure, 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 sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. I also relate to what you said about memory too. My memory is also stellar. Um, my memory has always been really good. So that's really um, interesting that both of us share a great memory for things like that. Yes. And I've had 7 different corneal transplants on my eyes to stabilize my vision to where I have some usable vision today, but certainly not enough to read print and not enough to drive a car, but still
Mhm.
enough to do many things. Um, you also mentioned the word, and you've said it several times, and I love to really dig into the philosophy behind these things. You say that it's important to have allies. So you've said that word several times. What is an ally, by the way? How do we define an ally? How do we find allies in the disability community? Tell us all about that. That's a really, I think, a really fascinating concept.
Oh, absolutely. An ally that I refer to when it comes to my podcasts and my live shows that I do, um, an ally is someone who can represent an individual for circumstance of, like my show, for instance, is Canadians with disabilities and their allies. So I tag the word allies on is because somebody who has lived experience or may have a family member or someone that they know that has a disability, regardless of what the disability is. And I thought at the time really hard and thorough on that word and what that word really means. And I felt that I needed to bring people together on however they want to interpret the word allies. And it really opens up the door, Aaron, to so many opportunities for people to gain the knowledge of what people with disabilities go through on a day-to-day basis. Lived experience is the key word that I use all the time on my show, because it really resonates with people. One in 5 people will develop a disability in some time in their life. The stats show that it's proven that either they're born with a disability, as we know, and it's something that we live with. Some people will say to me, "Well, if you didn't have a disability, would your life be different?" I go, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because I only know my life as it is now. But as a fellow, even as a fellow ally myself, to other people, I use it as a sounding board. I use myself as a sounding board where people would come to me and say, "Well, what can I what can I get out of knowledge out of your show?" And I said, "Well, come on to my show and you can listen to other people talk about their experiences of what they go through on a day-to-day basis." And yeah, it's so true, when it comes to people understanding what people go through on inequalities too, and that'll be something else that I'll be talking about in a bit too.
Well, rather than in a bit, why don't you talk about it in a now, right now?
Oh,
Why,
sure.
why,
Well,
why don't you talk about some of those inequalities? By the way, everybody on my side of the fence seems to have this perfect grass is always greener on the other side view of Canada. I'm
mm,
not going to name drop. I've spoken to many Canadians, and of course, I can tell by your adorable Canadian English that you're
mm,
definitely from across over the fence on the other side of the border. But I'll tell you this, Brent, I have been hearing a lot of complaints about the way people in Canada with disabilities are treated and the whole system there. So I've had tons of complaints. I've had actually no one in Canada has said anything nice about the way people with disabilities are treated. And I've spoken to some some other Canadian YouTubers,
Hmm.
not the super famous ones, but relatively successful ones like us, and they've had a lot of things to say, very negative things. But what has been your experience navigating Canadian society?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned, like, we'll talk about it now. I mean, rather than later now. Exactly, because it is so important to talk about it now.
Mm-hmm.
When I mention, we'll talk about it later, I mean, in the show. But you know what? I would rather talk about it now,
Well,
right?
good,
Because
good,
I
good,
want,
because
yeah,
you might forget later. You might
yeah,
forget. You never know.
exactly. Because I get so intrigued in my thoughts, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, yeah, yeah, Brett, yeah, yeah. I do it on my show sometimes, and then I go, right, what was I mentioning again? And so it is very important, Aaron, about inequalities. And yeah, I'll and I say things right off the cuff, right? And I call it the a spade is a spade, right? So basically what I'm saying is, yes, the systems in Canada are inadequate. When I say the systems, meaning people with disabilities on their support systems, accessibility is huge. Meaning a lot of things need to be modernized, ramps going up to businesses and to residential areas, public transit, buses not pulling up to the curbs, you name it. And some communities are better than others, but I think a lot needs to be fixed when it comes to that. That's accessibility wise. I mean, there's a lot of accessibility issues for sure that need to be targeted on, but income supports inequalities, they are really outdated. Um, Many advocates, including myself, will call it legislated poverty. I mean, and I'll call it what it is, right? Nobody in Canada or anywhere around the world should live in legislated poverty. Like we live
Hmm.
in like a top G7 nation around the, in North America. Like we're part of the UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. That Canada signed on to that agreement 13 years ago, and so far, and I'll say it on your podcast because I say it on my show all the time. So here's a kind of a scenario that a lot of people, they kind of laugh, but at the same time it's very serious. So I'll say what it is. So Aaron, so you asked me to make a pot of spaghetti, right?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, okay. So I get the pot out, I put the water in, right? So I didn't put the noodles in, but because you just told me just to make a pot of spaghetti. Well, I just put the water in, so about it. So what do I do now? Where do I get the ingredients to throw it in? Well, um, but the main part was you just told me just to to make the spaghetti. I mean, I made the first part. That's it. So what's happened here in reality is, yeah, that's just the shell of the programs. All the contents that go along with it have been ignored. They have not put in the adequate supports to have proper housing. A lot of people are on waiting lists for over 10 years in some cases. Market rents are right through the roof. There's just not affordable housing anywhere. The rates that support for affordable housing are definitely outdated. They are way back in like 1980s rates, and we're in 2022 now. So they haven't kept up with the cost of reality of what the total housing costs really do cost. There is subsidized housing, but there's, like I say, a long waiting list. And that gets into another discussion when it comes to that versus market rent, which about 90% of people pay market rent in Canada, disabled people. Some people would say 80%, where it's closer to 90% because there's a long waiting list. And a lot of people that are on that waiting list, they either give up or they just stay on that waiting list, but they're paying high market rent. Hey, so uh, now, when it comes to that topic, a lot of people shouldn't have to go into subsidized housing in order to get cheaper rent. The governments have a legal obligation to keep up with the standards of giving people enough money to actually make that choice of what's best for their needs. Lived experience, right? It comes down again, that lived experience. It's they should be able to choose the kind of housing that they want to be in. Do they want to pay market rent and be able to kind of go where they want to go, or be in nonprofit or subsidized housing when it comes under government control and under their umbrella? When I say that, it's usually rent geared to income when it comes to government housing. Now, here's a surprising fact that a lot of people don't know when it comes to government type housing. If you are a person with disability in Canada and you want to have the same privilege that subsidized housing provides for rent in market housing, you can't have that. You have to pay the market rent. You don't get subsidized housing in as a disabled Canadian unless you are over 65 years of age, because then when you're a senior, now you can apply for the government subsidy program, which is called SAFERS, which is a federal, not federal, provincial, sorry, provincial program, which enables a disabled person to get that kind of housing cost. It's a low cost housing, but you can still live in the kind of housing that you want to live in. You can live in a house, apartment, condominium, townhouse, whatever it is, right? You don't have to be in subsidized under the government. Where you're under 65, you can't get that unless you live under their control, right? So I just want to let people know when they hear that, that's how that works. I mean, I'm still learning when it comes to that kind of stuff, because to me it doesn't make sense. I think one, it should be extended across the board so people can either have that kind of housing, or in some cases I've said on my show before, just raise the rates already and let people make that decision, what's best for their needs.
Right, right. You know, and it really puzzles me as an American. Certainly, we have a lot of our own challenges, just as many of them as you have. But I'm a little puzzled and a little frustrated and sadly not surprised. But why do you think Canada has basically put forth more effort to not help people when they could spend a lot less energy and help people and do the right thing?
That is a very good question, Aaron. And yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing that up, because I think that Canada can make these positive changes to help people and lift them out of poverty completely. I mean, nobody should be living in poverty in a wealthy country. I mean, in Canada or the USA or anywhere in the world, there's resources that can actually help people for sure, and that is giving people a basic income. Right, you give people a basic income and they can make these decisions that are best for them, and they can make these choices of all your goods and services. Yeah, I mean, the government's helping out multi-billionaires, all the big corporations and tax breaks, and but unfortunately people with disabilities seem to be they just seem to be kind of tossed to the curb, and it's really bothersome because it doesn't have to be that way. And like I say, I mean, it's anyone can become disabled, and
Right.
then they become onto the system of
Yeah,
support.
I would just wonder what I'm trying to figure out intellectually is then why does
Mm.
Canada make that choice to put so many people to keep so many people in poverty? It's just, they're using up their own batteries when they could in fact
Mhm.
be doing the right thing and actually making the system work for those people that are in poverty, and then if they did that then they'd have less people in poverty, right? I mean, it's not that
Yeah,
simple. I know it's not that
yeah.
simple, but what I'm saying is why are they making, why are they wrapping the albatross tighter around their neck is I guess the true question.
I
There
think
has to be
that
there has to be a reason. If it's perpetuating for 30 years, there has to be a secret reason. What's the secret spaghetti sauce here? What do you think?
I think that it's definitely missing a lot of ingredients for one, and some of the ingredients that are missing is, from my view, is that uh, they deliberately set it up that way where maybe stakeholders, big corporations, they basically are telling the government, well, if they're not providing resource into the system, well, then they're not worth helping. And for me, I think that's wrong. I, I totally think that people have worth and it's who they are. Like they shouldn't be judged because they have a disability or they don't have enough resources to uh, enough finances to basically put back into society. And if you give people exactly what you mentioned, like if you give people enough resources, they're going to put the money back into the communities that they live in. They're going to help small businesses prosper. The money goes back in, the taxes get paid one way or another. And so, it's like when politicians are given their wages, right? They put the taxes back in, and it's all part of the social safety net, regardless if they're like any kind of government official, they're just a citizen that's not a government official. The taxes all get put back in the system one way or another. It's an income inequality, is what it is, and it just needs to be redistributed properly across the board, where people they can put, like I say, money back in. Just because if they can't work, they shouldn't be judged. Well, while you're not working, or you're not able to work, or you don't want to work. Well, it's maybe not that a person doesn't want to work. I think a lot of disabled people actually do want to work, but with different aspects of their disability, either hidden disability, physical disability, mental disability, you name it, they shouldn't be scrutinized of saying, well, just because of that, then yeah, I'm sorry, but we can't help you. Like they can. And another thing on that same topic, Aaron, is the money that gets spent on our healthcare system, like it puts a major strain on the healthcare system when people aren't helped financially properly because they put more strain on their mental well-being, their physical health, and their health diminishes when they're not provided the proper supports.
Absolutely. So then what becomes of all of these blind people or people with disabilities in Canada? How are most of them living, especially as you mentioned these people that are in poverty? Do they end up living with friends, family, group homes? What becomes of them in this mess?
Well, sadly, when rates are being suppressed back to I call it archaic levels, um, they choose to make sacrifices in some cases in a good way. Like, if they're able to, maybe live with a friend if they can, but that's not always viable either because sometimes when you live with a friend for too long, your friendship kind of diminishes down too. In some cases, a good thing too, right? Sometimes it can be successful, or they live with a family member. Unfortunately, some people don't have always that choice of living with a family either. Maybe they don't have enough room in their household anymore. The family maybe have downsized their homes. And the child has moved on, or the adult has moved on, and because some people, they leave home early, right? So I say that they're still youth or child, well, maybe not child, I guess I reward that part, but maybe they're into a group home, maybe their parents are separated, and they ending up going through a group home. Sometimes they end up being homeless because of the rates have been so neglected over years. They'll they don't have the resources to basically pay for the market rent or the kind of housing that they go into. Even subsidized housing, if they are able to get into subsidized housing, sometimes uh, it can be subpar in some cases, some kind of housing. Some are good, some are not so good. We have a big problem with homelessness in different key cities in Canada, where unfortunately there are people who they end up on the streets, and their wait lists, like I say, are so long to get them into the housing. And sadly, Aaron, sometimes the people that are on the streets, they don't want help too, right? And that's a very unfortunate, but some do. Or maybe when they don't want help, maybe they don't always know how to reach out to get the help. And that kind of breaks down into two different categories. Like they don't know help, they don't know how to get the help because having the support services, or they just don't want that help. Everybody has the different reasons why they end up where they do on different circumstances. But I think as a whole, government has a responsibility to make sure people are housed the best way they can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting and very frustrating. So, what can you tell me in relation more to your background? When you're not recording your show, what are you doing? What did you study in university? Those types of things. And then how you actually decided to create your podcast in the first place, even before it became the radio show. What do you think?
Well, first of all, when I do my show, I get great guests on the show, and when I don't do my show, I actually do a lot of research into finding out different kind of guests who I want to get on my show, of what the topic will be on that certain day. And I reach out and I mention, well, any topic of your choice. I advertise it out, any topic of your choice. And then what I do is I negotiate with the guest when they come on my show beforehand. And I'm like, I kind of mention, well, like, what are your interests? Like, I'll say to the person, what are your interests? What would you like to talk about? And then I tell them, well, like, what I like to talk about. And I kind of streamline it where I kind of go with the flow with the guest and make them feel comfortable. And I think that with common interest of what the topic is, and I try not to throw like too many major hardballs at the guests, because I want them to feel comfortable as an ally, or maybe they're talking about their lived experience, right? And I try to work through the questions and the possible answers that they may want to give when they feel comfortable about talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about. Is about, they say, the comfortable atmosphere that I create for a common purpose of bringing people together. And that when I'm not on the show, I try to relax, and I try to take things into perspective. I do a lot of reading when I'm on the internet, on Twitter, and I look at what people's conversations are, and I kind of one day I'll pick a certain theme that I look for, and I think, okay, they're talking about accessibility when it comes to plastic straws. Uh, I had a lady on one segment, and she was talking about plastic straws and how our federal government had regulated that they wanted to get rid of plastic straws, and one size fits all, right? So that got into a discussion, and it was so important because when people think, well, get rid of plastic straws, well, I guess that's a good thing for the environment. It is. I agree, but there needs to be an option where it comes down to people need to have that choice. Do they want paper straws? Do they want plastic straws? So they've introduced the paper straws, and well, that one size doesn't fit all, right? So, and that's just one example that I had on one person, because it was so important that that person wanted to talk about that one issue. Another person wanted to talk about housing, what they've gone through. They got renovated, or they got evicted because of the living conditions, and bed bugs. I mean, cockroaches, you name it, right? And it was terrible. And the person had to move because the landlord, well, felt that's the condition that they want to have the housing in. And so that lived experience, I haven't had the person on my show, maybe in the future, but I wish the person great success. And they did find accommodation temporary, and I think housing. They had to leave the province in order to do so. And like so many people I've had on, Aaron, I've had MPs on my show. I've had people all the way from provincial, MLAs to people would talk about accessibility, about public transit, lawyers. I mean, you name it. I've had the people on, and the list keeps going on because I like to have more people on to talk about important topics that I think that people really need to hear and what they go through.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very funny or it's very ironic that you look for topics based on the way that I used to look for topics.
Hmm.
A very long time ago when I started Aaron's Opinion, before it was actually called Aaron's Opinion, I was reading things that people were saying on Facebook in the various blindness groups on Facebook, and when people were asking their questions, I would answer their questions, and
Hmm.
then I would create an audio file and send it back to the person who answered the question, who asked the question, and then it occurred to me. That occurred to me. Wait a minute. That's like a podcast. If someone asks a question and I
Yeah,
answer it, and then I give them their answer, that's a podcast. And then I built
yeah.
it up over a period of time. But people ask and try to gather a lot of information too, just by Twitter. I mean, even I'm sure you do it. You can even go to YouTube videos, scroll through the comments. You know, see what people are saying in the comment section on YouTube. I mean, there's some interesting comments.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
And that's I do that a lot because I try to kind of get an idea of what people are really or what they're talking about, what really has hammered home, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
and affected their lives personally, and what they're talking about. So and then I kind of make little notes, and then I see, okay, well, how many people are really talking about this? Would it be an interesting segment to have somebody come on and talk about it, or whatever the topic may be? And I find it very informative that what people have to say, because every person's situation in life is different than everybody else. Like somebody could say, well, yeah, I have a visual impairment, and but it could be to a different degree of mine, right? And so like someone will say, well, I have a visual impairment. Well, I mean, so do I. But my experience is different than theirs. I also have a learning disability on top of it. um I was actually diagnosed with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like, it was not to a major degree of it. So it's like there's a lot of things, and that's just who I am. I only found out that I was diagnosed with a learning disability when I was actually in college. I was actually taking it was a educational assessment program, but it was more about learning who you are, and that was one of the courses. It was yeah, it was actually,
No, no,
there.
really, no, really. Who are you? No, no, no. Wait.
Yeah,
Let's try
yeah.
again. No, try again. Who is Brent? No, no. I'm
Yeah,
being serious. Who
yeah,
really? Who are you really? You gotta be faking. Who are you really?
yeah. I'm I'm Brent, and I'm actually a conversationalist, and
and you
that's
and you told them that on the exam. Right, right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I did. I actually, when I was actually, we were actually doing they call it auto is it oh no, not autobiography, videographies. Okay, so
The
we were doing video.
videography,
Yeah,
basically, a
yeah, yeah,
videography.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we were doing these, and I actually had the class
Mm-hmm.
actually watch it, and they actually graded who we are.
And what grade did you get?
I actually got an A in it.
Well, good.
Yeah, yeah, it was actually quite good because we actually had the class actually, yeah, look it over, and actually we actually each person, and I said, "Cut," I said, "Can we do this again?" You know. So yeah, we were going
And
through it all.
then everybody else was silent except for that one guy that sits in the way back of the room. No.
Yeah, it was actually really good. And it was scary because we actually had to tell our life experience, what we'd gone through, what your disability is. Can you just,
Mm-hmm.
say, describe it? And it actually, to be honest, it actually brought some tears to my eye at first because,
Sure.
well, the reason why, and I've said this, sometimes even on my show, and I, one day I'm going to do another whole segment about myself too, right? And that's going to be like more in depth. And but I actually say, well, like what I've gone through to a certain degree, right? But I learned about this when I was actually in college. At the time doing my course here, I learned that I had a learning disability. They actually
Mm-hmm.
had put me through an assessment to determine where I was academically, what are my chances of going forward and being more academic in college.
Mm.
I learned my strengths and my weaknesses, and the course taught me, how do you work with your weaknesses? How do you make it so that your strengths equal your weaknesses, vice versa. And I thought, wow, this is going to be
Yeah.
challenging, right?
Yeah,
No,
that
but
is.
yeah, but I learned with it though. I just said, ask me my view, and I'll say it right now to you too. You go with the flow in life. You just take the good with the bad and accept the fact that it is the way life is, and you can change it the best way that you can change it for yourself,
Right.
either good or bad. I mean, there's no right or wrong way in life, and I've learned that. But one thing I have learned though is that I can try to make positive change for other people and bring them forward, like bring them to me as a sounding board. It can be it can be challenging working with that, but I accept that and I like that. I like the challenge because I like to try to help people the best way I can and get them the advice and the service. If I don't know the answer, and unfortunately I don't know the answer to everything, I wish I did. But
That's
if I
interesting. Actually,
don't,
yeah.
then I refer them to the right person.
Oh, well, good. Well, good. From now on, if I have a question, I won't bother researching. I'll just call Brent.
Oh
You
yeah,
might
yeah.
get calls from me at 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm quite a character, you know. I'm not real. I have a huge personality. You might just get a call at 3 or 4 in the morning. Hey Brent, I have a question.
then then you might get it. You might get the voicemail though. I don't know,
Wait a
but
minute, wait, wait.
yeah,
You should set up a voicemail, a greeting thing, and I don't do it, and nobody does it in the states anymore, just for security. But a
yeah.
long time ago, you could set up, a voicemail. Hey, you've reached Bob, Uncle Bob. Leave the message after the tone beeps, that type of thing. You could create a voicemail and a greeting is what it's called on your voicemail. It says, "Hi, you've reached Brent the conversationalist. For conversations, press 1. For questions, press 2."
I like it. I like it.
You should. Oh, wait, no, we're gonna. I'm gonna hold you to it. We're gonna have to do an experiment. You should just set a greeting like that.
Yeah,
See how
yeah.
many, and I would just be curious to know how many people, how many scammers or weird people actually call you accidentally, listen to the voicemail, and then actually ask a question that they never knew they would ask. It would kind of be a fascinating sociology experiment, actually.
I think that would be great. That'd be totally awesome.
No,
That
no,
would rock.
no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. It would be horrible because you would be getting far too many people complaining about housing, or they'd be asking too many questions that you couldn't actually solve. So no, let me correct you. No, you don't like that idea. No, you don't. You don't want me to set that up for you. I love to joke around about stuff like that. That's
Oh
funny
yeah.
though. That's really intriguing. And so your radio show, in other words, do you take your podcast and then just let High Energy FM put it up on the radio, or do you actually do live streams through High Energy FM? How do you organize the show?
Yeah, how that works is so when I do my show on Twitter Space on Twitter, I actually every week varies on who I have on as guests, and some segments go like quite a while, and then I'm supposed to end the show, and then I send it off, and I send it off to my editor producer for the show. Yeah, I have an editor producer for the show who does all the audio segments of it, and he meaning his name is Neil Matheson, and he has a YouTube channel, and so what he does is that he actually makes the audio into a 15-minute segment onto YouTube. And so what he does is he actually puts all the highlights of the show onto his channel for people. If they've missed episodes, they can just go onto the show, onto his, from the show, but they can go onto his YouTube channel and subscribe. And yeah, I mean, I'd love people just to go on and check it out for sure. Because like sometimes people don't always get the chance to listen to the show live on the day when I have it on, so they just go to it and they check it out, and yeah, it's growing. There's over, geez, Aaron, there's over 50 shows now that I've done,
Yeah, that's
and
wonderful.
yeah, but how it's done is that so Neil gets a hold of it, and then what he does, he actually sends it off to High Energy FM, he
Mm-hmm.
sends off the actual segments. There are 15-minute clips of audio clips, and he sends it right out to the to High Energy FM, and then they put it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, which is great, and so I get to hear a little bit of a clip in the morning, and go, hey, oh hi, hi, this is Brent. I'm the host of Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies, and today I have whoever on, and yeah, it's great.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I'm on several stations too. I'm very appreciative of that, thanks to God. And it
Yeah,
is very inspirational to hear your voice in the wild like that and to realize, you're actually contributing to a greater product. And that truly is fascinating to me too. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Like, well, I was going to expand onto the name at one time. I was just kind of testing the waters, and when I say that, testing the waters, I was going to add on there and extend the name, but I like the word just as it ends with allies. And I was going to kind of like maybe make it sound like a world or global or
It already does.
yeah, you know what, but it already does. And I wanted to see where it was at, but everyone, from what I'm gathering, they know what the show is now. They know what it is, and allies basically means it could be anywhere around the world, anywhere, right? And it was
Mm-hmm.
more about thinking, well, maybe emphasize the name, and I thought, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it, just leave it the way it is. I like it. People like
I
it.
like it. I
Yeah.
I
Oh, great.
I support it. Hey, thumbs up. Go for it. Don't stop. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly, and that's it. It's great. It's gaining a lot of strength around the world. I've had people coming on from other countries. I've
Me
got
too. Yeah.
someone come on from the UK now, and
I know.
I'm learning what's going on in the United Kingdom. He's in
Yeah.
central London. He's actually, or no, not central, North London. Yeah, sorry. And he comes on, and his name is Mark, and he's I've learned a lot what's going on there, and how it affects Canada and other countries too. So definitely reaching out to fellow allies and what's happening in other countries is so informative, eh? And that word "a," and that's a Canada thing that we
Oh,
kind of
we
give
love
away.
we love that down here in the States. We
I
love
had
to
to
make
throw
fun of
that word
that.
"a" in there deliberately, eh? I went for that opportunity.
No, that was smooth because
Yeah.
Americans like to make this big joke about, oh, you're Canadian, like that, but nobody actually talks like that. But when you throw it in
No, I
nicely
know.
and softly like that, it actually sounds it. Yeah, yeah. It's
Well, here's another good one for you. I was traveling one year with my mom. We took a Greyhound in Canada. They
oh
got rid of
god.
Greyhound, unfortunately. It's so sad, because I love
I
traveling.
heard about no, I heard about that from another blind guy in Canada. I forget exactly how and when, but I did hear about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
But
was
yes,
until
what happened?
2008, 2018, I believe they got rid of it, the bus line. And they have charter buses now. They've taken over some of the routes, but only in parts of the country, like up to like Saskatchewan, I believe it is. And yeah, I mean, it's not the same. I can still travel certain parts, but when COVID gets done, and when the economy gets maybe a little bit stronger in different sectors, I'll have to do a little bit more traveling. But so I went. Here's a little story for you.
I
So
love
I
them.
I,
Love
I
little
so I went
stories.
with my mom. Yeah, I love stories too, and this is a good one. So I was traveling with my mom, and God rest her soul, but I took her on her last big journey with me and her, and she wanted to travel across the U.S. So I got some tickets, and as a Canadian with a disability, who's I'm registered with the CNIB, and in the U.S. they have I think something equivalent to that, like a organization, right? So I guess through ADA, I guess they have something through that, right through the organization there, like something equivalent to the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I guess in the US they have that something equivalent. But so anyway, I got my um, sighted mother, who was my guide, to assist me and getting on and off the bus. And so that I can read the different things far away, and help me navigate with accessibility with my itinerary and stuff, and where I need to. I don't stumble down the stairs on the bus and the ground, because some of those steps can be, you get down there, right? So it was good though. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, on our journey, we were going along, and I mentioned this one situation to every so often on my shows, and people laugh. Well, I mean, they laugh, but it's a serious situation too. It wasn't. I mean, the gentleman who sat down beside me, it was a. My mom wanted to stretch out on another seat across the aisle, so on the bus, she wanted to have her own little space. So I said, fine. Like, it wasn't that busy. The bus started filling up, and technically, Aaron, she's supposed to be sitting beside me, right? But that's fine. I mean, whatever. She wanted to have her own space. So another gentleman in the meantime sat down beside me. So he stretched his leg out. He puts his legs out and he says, do you mind if I just take a load off my legs for a bit? I just want to stretch my legs out. I said, sure. So he stretched his leg out and he took his leg off. And he says, yeah, I need to take a leg off here and put it in the overhead compartment. And he literally took his leg right off and he put it right up above where the luggage goes. I literally jumped. Oh my gosh. And he started laughing. He started laughing. He says, you never seen someone take a leg off before?
That's cute. That's
Yeah,
because it's got the innuendo. It's got the
yeah,
disability humor.
yeah.
It's got the porn in there. That's cute. That's kind of a cute. That's both serious, but
Yeah,
it definitely has a cute. That's very sweet.
that's
Actually,
what I
that's
mean.
kind of cute. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I explained to him, like I told him my situation and who I am and what I've gone through. And
Right.
so he says,
And
well, I'll tell you
you
what I
made
go
sure to
through.
say that your name is Brent and you're a conversationalist. You made sure to include that.
Yes. And so we both laughed at each other, right? It was in a good way. It was like
That's
we just
cool.
yeah, and so we stopped off at a restaurant to our break along the way, and my mom says, "Oh, what's this?" I said, "Oh, yeah, this is a gentleman who just takes his leg off when he wants to."
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
That's the highlight. Okay, that's the highlight. Okay, you're an amazing guest. That's fit. I've never heard a story with that level of comedy. That's like that's like I don't want to name drop, but that's some of that stuff you would see in the middle of the night on those adult only comedies. I mean,
yeah,
you got the and then like I'm just trying to envision in my mind like you turning over like over his shoulder like oh yeah mom Jerry there he takes his leg off he's gonna join us for a beer in just a second but let him put his leg back on, okay, hold on a second, like that. I mean,
well,
God.
I threw it back and I said, "With no shoes, no legs, no service," and the guy just started just roaring,
Are you kidding me?
yeah. And he just started laughing away at me. And I said, and I told him, I said, you never see I said, a blind guy. I said, I asked you what where the directions is to I said, to the front of the bus or the back of the bus. And he just started just roaring, laughing at me. I said, which way do I go? And so I made a laugh at it. He says, you said you're dissing your own disability and other people. I said, I know, but we gotta make fun of it somehow, don't we?
Yeah,
He goes,
you're
well, yeah, life's too,
fantastic.
and he says,
Oh
life's
my
too
God.
short there. And he says, and he goes, what's your name? I go, Brent. And he says, my name is John. And I said, John. I said, well, it's on the back of the bus. He goes, oh, he says, Brent, please stop. He goes, yeah, the John, can I hit the John? I mean, the washroom, right? And he says, oh, my mom goes, okay, enough. And I'm like, oh, I said, I haven't even started yet. And then she says, I just need a cup of coffee. And I'm like, oh.
Oh my God, you could do you need to do stand up. We need to get you down here in the city to do stand. Oh my God, that's definitely Hollywood stand up. Oh my God. Oh
Yeah.
my God. You need to have a stand up career. I mean, an audience would be on their feet at this point. I mean, oh
Oh,
my
yeah, yeah,
God.
yeah.
Oh
But
my.
and that was the adventure, right? And
I
so
mean,
yeah.
I don't even care. Did the bus even get to the other end of the line? I mean, because that
Oh, yeah.
material. Oh, well,
It was a great experience. Like we went across the Aaron, like across the U.S. and right up to the from the west coast, all the way from Canada and all the way down to the East Coast,
mhm.
all the way up to Boston and then up to Maine, and then we had to stay the night in Boston. Oh no, sorry, in Maine,
Hmm.
Bangor, Maine, and then we caught a bus in the morning. So yeah, it was actually quite an experience. And so then of course back, it was 4 days, 5 nights. That was a long journey. Would I do
Right.
that again? Maybe part way. I would rather take the train personally, because you can move around, right? My legs were pretty cramped up. I felt like I was still on the bus when I got off. The bus was still moving, right? But a lot of a great experience. So I talked to a lot of people. I ran to there was a lady who had cerebral palsy. I talked to a lady who was partially sighted and deaf. Well, she was she could hear little tiny bits, but it was interesting. Someone who taught me a little bit about sign language, which brought back a lot of memories from when I was back in elementary school. We were taught some sign language. I don't remember a lot of
I
it,
need I need
but
to I need to by the way we're about to run into we're about to run into an emergency situation here. Let's quickly clarify. Blind people do not use sign language.
exactly.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Just we have to. A lot of sighted people think that. Oh, do you speak sign language? A lot of people think that
Oh
though.
yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, when they taught us that in elementary school, and I remember
Hmm.
back then. I just remember that I said, "Well, how do you teach?" I said, "A blind person sign language," is what I said back
No,
then. I
you don't
still
need. Well,
remember
you
that.
don't need to. Well, I would
Yeah,
say you don't really need to because blind people already speak sign language.
and I had the teacher crack up, and she's all confused. I still remember it. She's like, she didn't know how to answer that. She really did not know how to answer that question. And I was quite surprised. And I remember going home and I said, teacher wouldn't answer the question. She goes, why? I go, I don't know. She said, only you know what works best for you. And I go, sign language doesn't work good for me. I said, but getting back though, I mean, regarding my show, before I launched it though, Aaron, in all seriousness, is I wanted to do something different for people. I knew during the pandemic that people had a lot of different experiences that they wanted to share with the public on and in a common safe space. And I call it a safe space because I try to make it so that people can express how they feel. And I've run against a few pushbacks on a couple of people, and that's normal, right? While you're speaking for me, or you have somebody speaking on behalf, really. And it comes down to where people may have different experiences or outlooks on what works good for just the general population. In general, I've learned from people. I've learned from trying to be accommodating on having people express on their thoughts, their feelings, what they go through, their lived experience, talking about their own disability. And that will be something that I'm going to be focusing on in some segments going forward too. A lot of people they don't know that because I haven't talked to them about that. I said I want to focus on themselves. Like a lot of them are pushed back against. A lot of them push back against government. Well, it's government's fault on everything. And yes, government policy decisions affect people's lives, but attacking, like, say, governments on a personal level, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, but on a political level, like their decision making, oh, absolutely, right? Because they have to be held accountable on their decision making. But on a personal level, I've learned that too. Like I've said, oh, like someone, oh, Brent, dude, don't go there on that one. And I'll say, well, what? They're like, well, on a not a personal level, but like saying, well, maybe that person shouldn't be in there in the office because they, whatever reason. And so I've been careful. Like, you learn as you go along on that one to see, right, and which buttons to push, which ones not to push. And I had somebody on my show one day where, yeah, they wanted to push some buttons, and unfortunately, yeah, it just it created a toxic situation where I had to diffuse it. And but for me, Twitter
Hmm.
glitched out, and Twitter actually diffused it for me.
That's
So it was,
cool. That's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
but I look back at different experiences
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the show. And I mean, I've been to college. I've taken business education. I took hotel management. I took a customs and transportation. Learned about modes of transportation, how to the hospitality industry, and I've worked in the restaurant industry for years. And then I injured myself finally doing other things that I guess, yeah, I guess I thought I could do things that my body kind of told me no. And I ruptured some discs. And yeah, repetitious work, Aaron, and it really hurt me, right? I mean, I'm healed up now, but did warehousing work, but it was hard. Due to vision wise, the expectations of trying to read small print, I had magnifier there with me to try to blow up the print, but unfortunately, assembly line work, you got to move fast, and they don't have time with that. So I managed to do other aspects of it too, right? Of packaging things, but I found that standing one spot too, it's hard. So, and then I thought, okay, you know what? What am I going to do going forward? And I now this is where I'm at. I'm here doing a podcast with Aaron Richmond today, and this is fabulous because advocacy doesn't stop in one's place; it keeps going forward. And yeah, and I launched my show, and who knows? I mean, it's growing, and who knows what radio station it's going to hit next too,
Who
besides High
knows?
Energy FM.
Who knows? Who knows? You've been, and I noticed the magic behind all this is that you, like every single guest, each time I interview someone, the guest gets more magical, better and better and better, and more meaning and more meaning. The magic behind podcasting is working very slowly and definitely surely. For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Extremely fascinating. Really an incredible conversation. But as we start to close out the hour, I always like to say thank you so much for joining me, Brent. It's truly been an honor and pleasure to have you here. And you're forever welcome here. But if you can ask me only one question to really make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you want to ask me?
What would I like to ask Aaron Richmond? Well, Aaron, what would you do different if you weren't doing podcasts and making people's lives better?
I don't know, because nothing is better. I don't know, because nothing is better than making Brent's life better.
I like that. I really like that. That's a
Because
really good answer to that.
how thank you. Because how do I end every episode of Aaron's Opinion? What do I say?
You say, thank you for being yourself.
I should say that. I don't. I say help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow. Because if I help Brent, then you'll help 1 million others. And I am a believer of that. I am convinced of it.
Totally. Totally. I totally agree with you. Is that it's a ripple effect when you help one person or you give them the opportunity to talk about their lived experience, you talk about who they are, then they're going to tell other people, contact Aaron, because now is your opportunity to express yourself and be yourself. And that's what life is all about, is to talk about what is all around us. And
Right.
that is being open and honest and just saying how you feel in a good way, but and also in a funny way too, because
Absolutely.
yeah, we can say things in funny ways too and make life enjoyable, because that's what I came up with the word weatherman. You know why? Because some
I was just
days,
about to ask, who is that
yeah,
weatherman thing?
because some days when it's raining,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Then I also look at the brightness of it because I can turn it into a nice, bright, sunny day and turn things from negative into a positive.
Oh, I do the same thing with the sun, except I say I'm going to turn this day into a negative and bring on some weather, bring on some clouds and make it a negative day.
Or we can bring on a real good thunderstorm and get things really rocking.
There you go. There you go. Hey, by the way, we're out of time, but thanks for joining me. It's an honor to have you here. If someone wants to learn about you, they want to get in touch with you, they want to get in touch with your show, I think they're going to want to be a guest on your show. How would they do that?
They would definitely log on to Twitter and look up Weatherman 2709. That's my Twitter handle on Twitter. And look on your feed, and you're going to see a little purple little I call it a little bubble is what I call it, and it shows when a person's actually active if they're in a Twitter space, and just click on that and just follow it. And when I got shows on, I sometimes it depends on how often, but I usually put a link on there. And if I haven't, somebody else will have that link that I've supplied to them. Just click on the link and go to the show, and I will make you feel very welcome. And if you want to be a guest, I will send an invitation out. Or if you want to be a guest on my show, send me a direct message, Weatherman 2709, and follow me, and I'll follow you back. And I would be more than happy to talk about topics that you would like to talk about. And if you know other people, yeah, definitely reach out and get them to reach out to me too, because the word gets spread around and we can all actually benefit from positive changes and lived experiences in life. And that's what it's all about, is making people happy.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Brent. All the best of luck to
Thank
you on
you.
High Energy FM. You're doing a tremendous job. Just keep on trucking. Keep on doing what you're doing. It's the right thing to do. Well, thank you so much. You've been listening to Aaron's Opinion with Aaron Richmond,
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Aaron's Opinion with Aaron Richmond, a conversationalist, or maybe that's Brent. I don't know. But thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe out there. Keep podcasting out there. Keep spreading all this positivity and knowledge around the world. Stay safe out there. We'll see you same place, same time. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Brent. Come back
Thank you,
anytime you
Aaron.
want. Help one person today. Help 1 million people tomorrow.